Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. We're going to share with you our Allegheny County setback app. My name is Jenny Allen. I am COO here at SkyTruth, and I'm going to be moderating the call today, trying to keep us on track and give a little time at the end for a question and answer period. Before I turn it over to our founder, John Amos, and to the app's creator, Brendan Jarrell, I'd like to go over just a couple housekeeping items. If you're new to Zoom, you can look in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner of your Zoom screen, and it'll say speaker view or gallery view. We recommend that you leave it on speaker view. It will enhance your viewing performance. There's also a chat feature. You can reach that at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you click on that, you'll see that all messages will come directly to me as the host. No one else will be able to see those messages, but we encourage you to give us questions and feedback throughout the webinar. Later we will be sending the slide deck and the recording, and on the last slide, Brendan Jarrell, the app's creator's email will be listed. Brendan's hoping that he'll hear from you so that you can let him know if you have any further questions. He's also willing to give you personalized walkthroughs of the tool, and if you have any specific examples that you'd like him to illustrate, he'd be happy to do that. Whether you are a concerned citizen or a journalist, a researcher, or a nonprofit worker like we are, whose mission is to preserve the environment and protect the health of the citizens of the region, we built this app just for you. Our mission here at SkyTruth is to provide you with the tools that you need to save the planet, and we're eager to help you do that. I'm going to turn it over now to our founder, John Amos. You're muted, John.
You coached me well to mute myself. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you all for attending our Allegheny County Setback App webinar today. First, I'd like to give a big tip of the hat to the Heinz Foundation for supporting this work. As Jenny said, I'm John Amos, the founder and president of SkyTruth. And at SkyTruth, we use the view from space to show what we humans are doing to the environment and to motivate people to take action. Lots of our work over the past few years has focused on showing the impacts from oil and gas drilling and fracking across the country and in other parts of the world. We also tackle issues like mining, deforestation, urban sprawl, basically illustrating the ways that we humans are systematically altering the habitats, the ecosystems, the landscapes that we all depend on. This project is a little bit different for us. In this case, we're using data informed by imagery to show not what has already happened to the environment, but to actually show what the future might look like, to show potential futures. In this case, potential futures with natural gas drilling and fracking in Pennsylvania. To live next to a modern drilling and fracking site is to live next to a very busy industrial facility. While the drilling site, also called a well pad, is being built, and while the wells are being drilled and fracked, there is 24/7 noise, dust, diesel fumes from all the equipment packed onto that site, and continual heavy truck traffic in and out of the area. There could be 12 or more wells drilled and fracked at that one location, with weeks to months of activity for drilling each well. And if any of those wells has a flaw in construction, there is the risk of methane migration and groundwater contamination that might not manifest itself in your basement or in your drinking water well for years. In recent public health studies, including studies done in Pennsylvania by researchers from Johns Hopkins University, show disturbing public health impacts occurring thousands of feet from these modern drilling and fracking sites. This is why most states where drilling is happening require a minimum distance to be maintained between the drilling activity and adjacent homes and other occupied buildings to separate people from drilling. That distance is called a setback. In Pennsylvania, the state requires a setback of 500 feet. But that's not very much separation between your house or your kid's school and a drilling site that can be as big as a Walmart. Fortunately, unlike most states, Pennsylvania law allows local governments, boroughs and townships, to enact stricter setbacks, requiring greater separation to protect public health and well-being. Now, obviously, there's a trade-off between a strict setback to ensure public health and a less strict setback that allows more access to the land to accommodate drilling activity. We wondered what that trade-off would actually look like. So our analyst, Brandon, using the very powerful Google Earth Engine platform, built an interactive app that lets us explore these trade-offs and illustrate potential futures for Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. I'm going to turn it over now to Brendan so he can show you what he's built.
Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. My name is Brendan Jarrell. I'm an analyst here at SkyTruth, and I developed the interactive app that I'll be showing to you today. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay, so our intention is to provide concerned citizens and decision makers with a visual depiction of what the future could look like when it comes to natural gas drilling and fracking. Let's start by looking at two very different futures for Allegheny County. This is what the drilling in Allegheny County could look like if all of the municipalities in the county enacted a 2,500-foot setback distance from homes, schools, hospitals, and other occupied structures. The heavy black line is the outline of Allegheny County. But what I really want to draw your attention to is this little cluster of yellow dots on the western edge of the county. This represents all of the drilling sites that could be built under this scenario. The gray shaded area around these potential drilling sites represents a 2-mile radius that we consider to be a precautionary zone of concern based on recent public health research and the opinions of public health officials. In this future scenario, there is room to accommodate only 10 potential drilling sites. About 4,500 homes and other occupied structures fall within the 2-mile zone of concern. Now let's look at another future for Allegheny County, a future that could become reality if localities do not enact setbacks that are stricter than the state's 500-foot minimum. 10 potential drilling sites and 4,500 homes in the zone of concern become 465 potential drilling sites and 380,000 homes, schools, and other occupied buildings in the zone of concern. These are two very different possible futures for Allegheny County. Now let's see how the app works. By the end of the webinar, it is my hope that you will be able to add this application to your tool belt as an aid for creating real change in your community. I'm happy to provide some one-on-one coaching, as Jenny said, so please contact me if that's something you'd be interested in. So when you click the link to open up the app, this is the landing page. This is what you see. The message in the middle of the page offers a short introduction to the app itself. So once you click anywhere on the map, this message will disappear and you can begin. Currently shown on the map, you have the outline of Allegheny County again, and a handful of existing drilling sites are shown in red as of December 18th of last year. To begin your analysis, please click the button located on the panel to the left, labeled Select a Setback Distance. Clicking on this button will show you a drop-down menu of different setback distances that you can visualize on the map. 500 feet is the current Pennsylvania regulation, as John said. 1,000 feet represents a Colorado setback regulation required between oil and gas facilities and schools, athletic fields, and child care facilities. 1,500 feet is the setback distance required between a well and an occupied structure in the city limits of Dallas, Texas. And lastly, 2,500 feet represents the setback distance proposed in Colorado in 2018. If it had passed, this would have been the most stringent setback regulation in the United States. Selecting a setback distance generates gray patches within the county boundary. This represents the area of the county still available for drilling after applying the setback that you chose. So, for example, selecting a 500-foot setback shows that 53,000 acres of the county are open to well pad construction, and this number can be seen on the sidebar. Next, we're going to look at selecting the drill site spacing, or the buffer area. This will allow us to view potential drilling locations considering the setback distance we've chosen. Selecting this button shows us a drop-down menu of the separation between potential drilling sites. So you have 40 acres, which is a spacing that is common in natural gas fields around the country, 80 acres, which has been proposed by industry as an ideal spacing for drilling sites targeting the Marcellus Shale Formation underlying much of Pennsylvania, and 640 acres, or one drilling site per square mile, which has been suggested to promote fair distribution of wealth when considering landowners' mineral rights. Selecting the 80-acre area between well pads generates the graphic I showed in the beginning. Again, potential drilling sites are shown in yellow, and the gray shaded area represents a 2-mile precautionary distance based on recent recommendations by public health experts. And then statistics for the potential drill out scenario are displayed on the sidebar and will change as you go further in depth in your analysis. So looking at the top right of your screen, you'll see a layers tab. Hovering your mouse over this tab will show you a menu listing the layers which can currently be toggled on and off on the map. So I've provided an example. Checking the checkbox next to current drilling sites will project the red drilling dots back onto the map. This toggle can be done with any of the layers currently loaded onto the map. If you're interested in seeing the potential drilling sites with a satellite backdrop, this can be switched with the map and satellite buttons located right next to the layers tab. So this is what the map would look like with a satellite backdrop. This could be very useful if you wanted to zoom in on your house, for example, and see the potential drilling sites or the zone of concern around your house. On this slide, I've included a summary graph which shows the number of potential drilling sites considering each setback distance and drill site spacing. One thing that sticks out to me is the profound difference in the number of drilling sites that could potentially be developed assuming an 80-acre drilling site spacing and the proposed 640-acre drilling site spacing at each setback distance. This graph represents a summary of the number of homes and other occupied buildings within each setback and spacing scenario. So there's a stark contrast, as you can see, between the 500-foot setback with 80-acre drilling site spacing and the 2,500-foot setback with an 80-acre drilling site spacing. I think this offers a chilling glimpse into the potential future of Allegheny County. We've also created a table which breaks down the number of potential drilling sites at each setback and spacing scenario per municipality. And the sheet is available at the link provided in the bottom left-hand corner of this slide. Before I close, I wanted to offer you a visual of what this development could look like. As we are all aware, these drilling sites won't be dots on a map. They will be cleared areas of land with heavy traffic, light and noise pollution, and road development. These could be areas where your kids used to play, or you used to walk your dog. According to SkyTruth's 2017 Frac Finder update, the average size of a drilling site in Pennsylvania is 3.4 acres. The red square shown here is representative of this average area. This could be someone's backyard. And this illustration doesn't even show that 2-mile zone of concern around the drilling location. This is why setback regulations are such a powerful tool for protecting public health and well-being. I hope this tool will help people advocate for stronger setbacks in every borough and township across the state and here in Allegheny County. This change won't begin at the top. This change will begin with you, the people attending today's webinar. So please give the app a try. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if you'd like some help. Thank you. And with that, I'll give it back to John.
Well, thanks, Brendan. That is an amazingly powerful tool that you've built to help show us what the future could look like based on different actions that local governments can take in Pennsylvania. It's our hope, as Brendan said, that you'll give this app a spin. Kick the tires, try it out, let Brendan know what you like or don't like about it or wish you could do with it. And most of all, we hope you'll share it with your family, friends, colleagues, and especially with your local zoning and planning officials and commissioners to start a conversation about setbacks. We have time for some questions. Please type them in the chat for Jenny if you haven't already. And again, thank you very much for attending today.
Thank you, Brendan and John. I hope everyone can hear me. We've had a few questions come in. One was about a link to the app. I just wanted to clarify that we will be making sure everyone has a link to the app, Brendan's email. We're going to be delivering a recording and also Brendan's slide deck. So you'll be able to investigate some of these slides in a little bit closer detail. We know it's a little hard on a Zoom to catch all the details, especially those little pull down menus. So some of the questions that have come in during the presentations, what is the significance of the different setback distances? How are these justified?
Well, Rye or Brendan, I think you answered those during the presentation, but can you kind of repeat why we selected those setback distances as choices?
Absolutely. So the reason why we chose them in order, the 500-foot setback distance is the statewide requirement currently in Pennsylvania. That's the minimum setback distance required between occupied structures and a drilling site, assuming that someone does not waive that setback. The 1,000-foot setback distance was taken from Colorado. So this was like a compromise after the defeat of the 2,500-foot setback in 2018, where the state now requires a 1,000-foot setback distance between oil and gas facilities and schools, athletic fields, and child care facilities. The 1,500-foot setback distance comes from a 2013 ordinance passed in Dallas, Texas. Dallas-Fort Worth sits atop the Barnett Shale Formation, and about 2,000 wells have been drilled in Fort Worth, some in residential subdivisions and even in the city's business district. So in 2013, Dallas passed an ordinance expanding the minimum distance between a well and a home from 300 to 1,500 feet in an effort to limit drilling inside the city limits. And then the 2,500-foot setback, titled Proposition 112, was on the ballot in Colorado last year. And if passed, it would have been the most stringent setback regulation in the United States.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you. The next question that we've gotten in is, does your app take into account current municipal zoning ordinances? Some municipalities have restricted drilling by zone.
It does not. That's information that we would love to add in future upgrades to the app. And we know that some of you have been working diligently on this issue and have been making some progress. So it would be a big help to us if you could contact us and let us know which municipalities already have enacted stricter setbacks and what those setbacks are, so that we can incorporate that in our modeling scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just a great example of how this product can be improved greatly by relying on experts on the ground, which is the residents and the activists that are in the area.
Right.
Another question that's come in is, what is the significance of the different well pad spacings in the analysis? How did you pick these spacings, and who controls the spacings?
I'm going to throw that one back at Brendan also.
So the spacings between wells is not currently regulated. The distances between wells is determined largely by operators seeking to maximize returns on mineral ownership and the rule of capture. In the terms of what I chose for the analysis, the 40-acre spacing was based upon the average spacing between well pads across the country and other parts of the country. The 80-acre well pad spacing was dependent upon what is considered to be the average area between well pads in the Marcellus Formation area, which includes Pennsylvania. And then the 640-acre well pad spacing was based upon a fair pulling and unitization proposal brought forward by a person to the Pennsylvania Economic and Workforce Development Subcommittee to as a way to make sure that everyone gets equal royalties for the gas that's being drilled underneath them.
Thanks, Brendan. So that 640 acre, and that's one drilling site per square mile. That's what that equates to. That's something that was suggested in the interest of fairness, and we don't have any understanding that there's any movement to encapsulate that in any regulation. So essentially, industry is determining what drill site spacing they would like to have to optimize the return on and the production of gas, while minimizing the potential for these wells to interfere with wells on other drilling sites. And 80 acres has been suggested by industry as a good spacing to strive for in the Marcellus shale play of Pennsylvania. But Allegheny County, as we've seen, has been very lightly drilled at this point relative to surrounding counties, and that's why we think there's such an opportunity here for residents to work with their local governments to let their government know what they want their future to look like when it comes to this drilling activity. Jenny, any other questions?
Yes, we've got some great questions. The next one is, where did the 2-mile buffer come from?
Brendan, you want to handle that one too?
I think you should.
Okay. Well, so there's been almost an explosion of public health studies done over the past several years around the country, looking at the potential impacts to public health of living near one of these modern oil and gas drilling and fracking sites. And as drilling has moved into people's neighborhoods where people live and work and play and go to school, the urgency of this has become much more acute as drilling has come closer and closer to people. So there's been a body of public health studies emerging. Again, I mentioned the studies done by Johns Hopkins University, accessing their big public health database that they have for Pennsylvania and relating that to people's proximity to gas drilling and fracking sites. And these studies have found measurable public health impacts, decreased birth weight in babies, increased incidence and severity of asthma, a variety of other negative health outcomes for people living well beyond 500 feet from a drilling site. And a recent polling of public health experts revealed that most of them considered 2 miles to essentially be what we would call a zone of concern. That the data haven't emerged yet to conclusively show public health impacts at that 2-mile distance, but as more studies are done, they are showing public health impacts farther and farther away from these drilling sites. And so, as a precautionary principle to protect public health in the absence of that data and the rigorous studies that need to continue to be done, they suggested that 2 miles was a protective buffer around these sites. And that's why we show that on the map, out of essentially the precautionary principle that if you don't know, you should take the most protective action to protect local residents and their health and well-being. Did I get that right, Brendan?
I think so.
Here's another question that's just come in. Going past proximity, do you think the app could eventually include a measure of density? Living close to one well is a risk, but living close to many wells is a greater risk and would be an interesting statistic to present to zoning boards. A thoughtful question.
That's a fantastic question. We'll put that on our list of possible future upgrades for this. But you're right, the health risk and certainly the general well-being impact is going to be multiplied by proximity to multiple drilling sites. And it's important to keep in mind this drilling is unlike what happened in Pennsylvania for most of the 20th century. These drilling sites are designed to accommodate multiple wells, not just a single well. And the drilling and completion and fracking and completion process for each one of those wells takes weeks to months. And the drilling could be staggered out over a period of several years. So when you're living next to one of these sites, you're living next to an industrial facility for a much longer period of time than people think of when they think of the conventional drilling that used to take place before fracking and the development in the Marcellus Shale. So I think that's an important question, the cumulative impact. And we will continue to monitor the public health research and work with researchers like those at Johns Hopkins to see if they have plans to consider this cumulative impact in future studies. And we, of course, will consider that in future upgrades and enhancements to Brendan's app. Brendan, you have more work to do.
So we had reserved about 30 minutes for this call. We at SkyTruth, we're happy to stay on as long as people still have questions, but knowing that some of you may have only scheduled 30 minutes, I think we have time for one more question. And it's a great segue off of that last question, which is, what will you do next?
I think what we will do next depends a lot on you. This is why we're urging you to use the app, give it a try, share it, show it around town, and give us your feedback. Let us know, and I think we put Brendan's email up on the screen, but it's brendan@skytruth.org. Let us know, let Brendan know what you would like to see. And if you do find this useful, how are you finding it useful? How are you actually using it in your community to start that conversation about going beyond the bare minimum 500-foot setback that the state of Pennsylvania has enacted, and encouraging your community to implement a stricter setback to really be protective of public health and well-being. We'd love to know how you're using this and how you're finding this helpful. So what we do next depends in large part on what we hear back from you. So please give us a shout.
Great, thank you, team. I just want to remind all our attendees that you can visit us at skytruth.org. There's a link to the app there, and later today we'll be posting that slide deck and the recording of this webinar, and Brendan's email address will be listed there. And again, we just want to thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with us and learning about this tool. And as always, we'd love to hear from you on any issue, and let us know how we can help you with the work you're doing in your communities. So thanks so much. Come to skytruth.org and have a terrific day.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.